Good evening, everyone. So sorry for the delay. We were trying a new computer and didn't work, but we have this one. It's always a pleasure to be here among my fellow spiritists and to be visiting once again the Spiritist Society of Baltimore. I have a special feeling every time I come here. It's always so great. I have been attending meetings here and have all these friends for so long, and so it's always a pleasure to my heart and a great possibility for me to be here and to do this work. Every time I have to talk about Kardec, I always feel kind of emotion because many times I think we do not realize the difficulties perhaps that Kardec had to face to bring us all this set of knowledge that today frees us from ourselves. We tend to look at missionaries as being special people. And yes, they are. They make a so incredible accomplishment. But they had to track difficult paths, such as the ones that we are doing now. So to think that everything that they had to face was easy for them, this is not true. And I was thinking about that statement from Jesus when he said, I did not come to bring the peace, but to bring the sword. Meaning, and we have this interpretation beautifully explained by the spirits in the gospel according to Spiritism, when the spirits enlighten us and tell us that even within four walls in our own homes, we would find people that would not necessarily understand the ideas or inclinations or beliefs that we have. And thinking about Kardec and everything that he had to go through from the beginning, starting in this country with the Sister Fox, the phenomena, until he finally accepted to be part of what it was called a seance at the time, and participated in that, the turning tables that they called. It was a long way. He was over his 50s. A very renowned person in France already for all the accomplishments, the personal accomplishments he had. And then there he was looking at the phenomena when people were thinking, the tables are talking to us. He said, come on. What are you talking about? How can a table talk? If there is no brain, there is no possibility. We can try as hard as we can. We will never get anything from a table. Sometimes it's even hard to take good things from a brain. Imagine from a table. And from all of that to the communications that he had and received it, there is one particular communication that he received from what is called the Spirit of Truth. This Spirit of Truth told Kardec that every month, for 15 minutes, it would come to answer and to enlighten Kardec's doubts and clarify things. 15 minutes a month. And here we are sometimes, thinking, calling all the names that we have. Hey, the higher you are in the spirit hierarchy, come to me and enlighten me and protecting me. And for Kardec, it was just 15 minutes a month. And there was a time that all the spirits where, and actually also the incarnate, because, I think it happens with us as well. When some people see that you are, doing this work, doing this, but they say, you know what, do it more, produce more. I'm giving to you my share, so you do my share as well. The more you do my share. So I just imagine, all those people that were around Kardec when they gave Kardec 50 notebooks. There should be something like that at least, right? Here you have it. Organize everything because you have the ability to do that. All the messages that were received during that time, and gave it to Kardec, and just passed the responsibility to Kardec. And everyone was putting so much on him, and saying, even the spirits, that he had the mission of doing that. And we can only imagine Kardec among all of those, pressure and paperwork and, thinking about his reputation perhaps, because now we are talking about things that even today, and remember, this year we are honoring and remembering 150 years that Kardec has died. So we are talking about more than 150 years ago. So imagine all the pressure when you come and you bring subjects such as spirituality. Probably because he was over his 50s, people were saying, he used his intellect a lot, were thinking, perhaps he's going crazy now. He's getting too old with these ideas, 50 years old in the 19th century. You're old. You are considered old. So he had a message. He received a message and he had a conversation with the Spirit of Truth, asking about this supposed mission. And this is what we are going to be seeing here now. So he questioned the Spirit of Truth. Good Spirit, I would like to know, what do you think of the mission that some spirits assigned to me? Tell me, I ask you, if it is a trial for my self-esteem. And the answer, I can confirm what you were told, but I recommend you much discretion if you would like to succeed. Do not forget that you can succeed, but you can also fail. In the latter case, someone else who would replace you, as God's designs never rests on the head of a single individual. Never speak, though, of your mission. It would be the path to failure. A mission can only be achieved by the work accomplished, and you haven't done anything yet. If you succeed, sooner or later, humans will recognize you, as it is by the fruits that we identify the quality of the tree. So the Spirit of Truth came and confirmed to Kardec, yes, you were assigned a mission. But it's not because we are assigned a mission that we are going to succeed or that we are going to do something about it. I imagine, unfortunately, that for many of us, we had agreed to do few things before reincarnation, and here we are, and it's still delaying and still not doing perhaps what we had committed ourselves to do. And he said, be very cautious in terms of, speaking about it. Speaking about what? And how can we actually measure what we have accomplished in a lifetime? Some works we understand that are only going to be appreciated with time, sometimes even centuries. Beautiful music that the composers brought to us, at their time, not necessarily they were appreciated. When we talk about painters that today sells for over, $1 billion, they died in poverty. When we talk about poetry, writers, when we talk about scientific discovery, many people, let's remember Galileo Galilei. He was very close to be burned at stake because he dared to say that the earth was not the center of the universe. So how can we think in terms of spiritual values and in terms of, really analyzing the ground there of a mission when we are living in the times of this mission? Today, we can appreciate more all this set of knowledge that the spirits brought to us, to Kardec. We can appreciate each time more all the set of knowledge that the spirits brought to the books and the psychography of Chico Xavier, but we still will have a long, long time to go in this case. And so Kardec asked him, okay, I have a mission according to what you say. In this case, I ask you and the good spirits' assistance to support me, because he understood that when we have a mission to accomplish, to fulfill, it's not always an easy thing. And the answer is, you will never lack our assistance, but it will be useless if on your side you fail to do what's needed. You have your free will that you can use as you please. No human is forced to do anything. So let us think about ourselves. And I'm using these examples, the things that Kardec went through, also to resonate with what is happening to us, with what is happening to us now when we are talking about spiritism, when we in our path of redemption as well, in our path to discover spiritual values. So in this case, we understand all the assistance we receive from the spirits. But if we do not change ourselves, we expect them to do everything, or we postpone things, or we say, I'm still not capable of doing that. So there are many things, and this is one thing that we have to understand when we are talking about spiritism, because we find many people that come to a Spiritist center, and at the end of the day, they say, oh my God, I don't feel I'm receiving that much help. I've been here for so long, and, life is still hard. My health is still not the way I would like it to be. And flash news flash, whatever, it's only going to get worse. We're getting older, so it's not going to get better, right? Let's enjoy it today, because a year, 5 years, 10 years from now, we will be 10 years older. And our health is going to be more compromised. But the thing is, like they say here, the spirits are always helping us. We sometimes are the ones that are preventing them to help and assisting us, because of our free will. Free will, according to what I say, is not the spirit saying, is a blessing and a curse, right? It can be a blessing if we know how to use it. It can be a curse if we lose our ways with our choices. So here, a spirit, highly elevated, the spirit of truth, coming, telling Kardec, you have your free will. And even if I want you to succeed, my will is not as powerful as yours. So it's things for us. Those are things for us to reflect about. So another question that Kardec says, what could cause my failure? Would it be my lack of capacity? Because this is another thing we tend to say. Oh, maybe it was just too much. You expected too much from us. And we hear all the time, nothing will come in our way that we are not capable of dealing with. And this answer from the Spirit is, no, but the mission of reformers is full of choices and dangers. I warn you that yours is rough, because it is designed to unsettle and transform the whole world. Do not suppose that it will be enough to publish 1 book, 2 books, 10 books, and then rest peacefully at home. So when we are invited to be part of a movement that has as aim to regenerate humanity, starting from ourselves, of course. Although normally we think, no, I want to start with their change. I change later. But it's not this that it has to happen. It has to be exactly the other way around. It has to start with us. Of course, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy on us. It's not going to be easy on those that are around us. I don't know with you, but, the more we involve ourselves with more serious matters, the more you change your companions, the companions that are around you. Your friends that used to like, very light person, very irresponsible person that one day we were, now because of, what we are trying to do with us, they don't find us as interesting as anymore. So we change, and of course, everyone and everything that is around us changes as well. And it's no longer comfort. It's no longer something that is familiar, because many times those friends do not want anyone next to them reminding us that they have to be responsible, reminding them that they, well, we are immortal. We live more lives. You have to, to take control of your lives. They don't want to hear that. So that's why it is always very, very difficult. And for those who are invited to be part of this, and listen, it's not only Kardec. Of course, we cannot compare ourselves to Kardec and to the mission that Kardec had. But we were all called to leave this movement of spirituality as well. So we also have responsibility. So sometimes we hear people saying, oh no, every week I go to the Spiritist Center. Once a week, for an hour, I sit at the center. Oh, wonderful. But then, when we are going to look, it's just that. It's just a week, one hour a week. What are we doing with that? Like they say here, we cannot just rest peacefully at home because, I'm giving 1 hour of my time, of my week, of my time once a week. It's everything that we have to be doing in our daily lives and how we are going to be impacting our lives, our decisions, and the decisions of others that are next to us. So this comes and as an advice from the Spirit as well. So he tells Kardec, you have to expose yourself to terrible hatred that will arouse towards you. You will face malevolence, slander, and betrayal from those that seem to be the most dedicated. Your best instructions will be disregarded and falsified. More than once you will succumb to fatigue. In a single word, you have to sustain a continuous fight with the sacrifice of your rest, your tranquility, your health, and even your life, considering that without this, you would live longer. Very interesting, this kind of approach, right? And now, do you understand why we have so few people that are Spiritists? Many times we receive people, our Spiritist Center in New York is also all in English, and of course, it's not as big as the ones that is only in Portuguese. But, and sometimes, Americans, when they get in touch for the first time with the idea of Spiritism, the spiritual ideas, like very much it happened with all of us, they become fascinated. Because it is fascinating. I mean, I think it is fascinating. And soon after, there will come the question, how come we don't have more people? What are we doing wrong that we don't have, a room that is 5 times this, the room that we are now? It is because of that. Because it requires so much from us in terms of, looking inside ourselves, reevaluating things, and being misunderstood. and not necessarily accepted. And worse yet, suffering, malevolence, discredit. And here we are talking about, like, again, I said, a scholar that were highly appreciated in France, in Paris at his time. And the cherry on the top is you even would live longer. So can you imagine? I was when I was preparing this talk, I was just thinking about Kardec, hearing all of that. Yeah, if you keep living your life the way you have been doing, you will not face any of this. You will be living longer, unpreoccupied life, and it goes on. For these missions, intelligence is not enough. Remember, we are talking about a scholar, and the Spirit is coming and telling you, think that just because you have all this intellectual ability, we are not talking about intellectual ability here. And that is the reason why sometimes among the followers of Spiritism, we will find the most dedicated people that perhaps didn't even have such a, formal school education. In Brazil, for instance, many will not have attended college. Here in this country, we have more people. It's easier sometimes, for us to go to college, to pursue the school here. But in other countries, it's not the same. But here's the saying: it has nothing to do with intelligence, because what you have to do is humility, modesty, detachment, courage, perseverance, unshakable strength, prudence, tact, devotion, abnegation, disposition to face all sacrifices. As you see, your mission is subordinated to conditions that are dependent on you. Where do we get that? There could be a supermarket where we could go and just say, okay, I need 5 pounds of humility. Well, in my case, I think I need more. 10 pounds of humility and 15 pounds of patience. Half a pound of perseverance. It would be great, right? But those are things that we just conquer with hard work, with a lot of dedication, with a lot of commitment, but above all, understanding. And that's what is beautiful from Spiritism, because it says that we have we will only accept things that we understand. There is never an imposition on people. You have to do this, and it is this way because it was said. Someone said it is this way. We always are telling people, you have to question. You have to understand, because when we question, when we understand, we accept with our hearts. And not because, it's a dogma or because people are saying and doing things like that. No, it's something completely different. It has to be from our heart, from understanding. And in this way, the more we go like this, the more we will be developing the virtues necessary for us to become a new self. It is the process of becoming more spiritualized. And then Kardec says, I write this note on January 1st, 1867, 10 and a half years after the above communication was given to me. I can confirm that it was fulfilled in all of its aspects, because I went through all vicissitudes that were predicted. I found myself fighting against the hatred of fierce enemies with injury, slander, envy, and jealousy. Infamous libels were published against me. My best instructions were falsified. I was betrayed by those whom I most trusted, and I was paid with ingratitude by those to whom I provided services. It's very interesting that he had the courage of presenting all this communication. First, the admonitions from the Spirit of Truth. Like, yeah, you have a mission. Yes, we will be helping you, but yes, it only depends on you. And you have, to do your homework, like we would say today. You have to, withstand everything that is going to be happening because of changing of ideas, of breaking the rules, because that was breaking the rules at the time, right? And on top of all of it, you have still to nourish virtues in yourself, because otherwise you will not be able to succeed. And he comes 10.5 years later and say, yes, I have to confess to you and leave this testimony to us. And for us, we are here representing Spiritism in this planet and this country. Many times we tend to give up very easily because, there was someone that day at the center that I don't know for what reason didn't say hello to me. Or just came to me and said, you know what, perhaps it would be better if instead of doing this way, do this that way. No, it's criticizing my work. We have to think about it. We have to understand that. And then Kardec continues saying, the Paris Society became a source, Spiritist Society, became a source of continuous intrigues warped against me by the very same ones that had been supporting me. They would behave well in my presence and attack me behind my back. I was no longer able to get any rest. More than once, I succumbed to excess work that caused me health problems and compromised my very existence. I think another thing that we do not realize is that we have, Kardec left us 32 publications. It's not just the 5 books of the communication commonly known. And of course, this is the basis we have to know, but we have 12 years of the Spiritist review that are those big. I normally say, perhaps we are talking here about 10,000 pages. 10,000 pages for us to write in the computer today is already a lot. Can you imagine writing 10,000 pages with a quilt and by hand, not being able of correcting, doing scratch the word because you don't want this work, and let alone when we are talking about publishing that, for a book or a publication, for us to have it, they had to do, like piece by piece of the words, and then each page, I don't know how they call that, those, the press, to do the press, it's not automatic like we have today. So when he says here that he was not able to get any rest, we will say, oh, maybe, nowadays to have 32 publications, maybe it's not that bad. 10,000 pages, okay. But we are talking about those conditions, not to mention that, with everyone trying to make you lose heart, criticizing your work, questioning your work, and even your sanity. And then he says, but thanks to the protection and assistance of the good spirits that incessantly proved their support, I have the blessing of recognizing that I have never felt any discouragement or dismay. This is where we know that he was a missionary. Because when we are not really missionaries, we will go through all of that, if so, complaining. I remember that when we start this movement together with the Spiritist Society of Baltimore of bringing Spiritism in English in the U.S. We were criticized a lot. It was hard. It was hard. We don't have to go through that here. It was so difficult to, even to have the understanding of our fellow spiritists. They would say, why are you doing that? Spending money to rent rooms, trying to do translation material. There are no Americans. How could they come, right? There was nothing for them. And then we would do the translation. It was so hard, and everyone would come and criticize, oh, you're missing a comma here. Or, if you use this synonym instead, would be better. And mostly it was not the Americans that were saying that, it was the Brazilians. And I remember that I had a hard time with God at that time, because I would have conversations with God that I would tell God the following: God, you are the Almighty, the all-known everything. So, if you knew, and of course he knew, he or she knew, that I was going to be living in the U.S., and all my friends, the fellow spiritists that were in this saga, to bring Spiritism into English for the English-speaking community. Why did you not think about equipping me better? I could be more like, a native than just, what I am till today. And then I at least could do everything by myself. Because at that point, we had to rely on a lot of people that would have more expertise on the English language, and even some Americans as well, to help us with the proofreadings and etc. And you can just imagine, it was longer than Game of Thrones for them, more than 7 years for them to review a book this big. And so it was hard. And every now and then I would be lifting my eyes to heaven and think, why, God? Why? And which is something that we like to say to God all the time. Until one day, I think he got tired of me just asking. And I think that I had what I call an insight. That was, and do you suppose you were called to do that by yourself? More than just translating or doing things like that, you are there to inspire others to share in the same task that you have to do. And so I understood that was the reason why I didn't have all this knowledge, because we have to work as a group. Unity, to be together. Even Kardec, he was not, he is the representative, but if it were not for the mediums that were working with him, if it was not for Amélie Boudet, his wife, that was there all the time with him, what could have him accomplished, actually, considering all that? And so he says, I carried on always with the same commitment, the work that was in front of me, without any concerns with the perversity that I was subjected to. And this is another lesson that he gives to us. Many times, because people are, saying bad things about ourselves, about our work, about our dedication, because they don't understand, or because they are envious, or because they are not capable of doing the same and they would like to do that. What do? Instead of keeping on inspiring them, we prove them right. We give up. We don't do that. I remember I was always this idealist. I had the opportunity of getting to know Spiritism very early. By the age of 11, I was like already devouring those books and going to meetings and etc. I know I'm weird, I'm odd, but that was the way it was. And I remember I was in my I was perhaps 17, 18 tops, and I remember a woman coming to me and said, Jussara, wait till life happens to you, and then I will see if you will continue being a spiritist. Maybe because of her, I'm still here, because I had to prove her wrong, so thank you very much. But I've never forgot that, and there was so much bitterness, not that because, she was wishing me not to go or to pursue this way, but people do not believe that we are capable of doing that we are capable of committing. And they need people to inspire them, to say, you know what, if you apply yourself, if you do a little bit, you will be able to do that as well. So, and this is a lesson that we see here from Kardec. He said, regardless of everything that happened, well, we have all that. And things continue improving. But also, despite the vicissitudes, how many satisfactions it brought me, seeing the work growing so prodigiously. What sweet compensations I received as payments for my tribulations. How many blessings and proofs of real sympathy I received from so many afflicted that found consolation in the doctrine. This outcome was not announced to me by the Spirit of Truth, that without a doubt intentionally showed me just the difficulties of the path. How ungrateful of me would be to be here complaining. So this is another interesting aspect, right? Because instead of coming and saying, no, you will find recognition 150 years after you died, people will be gathered in Baltimore talking about you. Do you know Baltimore? Right? In the U.S., where everything started, you will go there and bring even more knowledge and understanding, explaining all the phenomena that was first just accepted as something, to be another distraction. We didn't have, our smartphones, right? There had to be something. So to have a seance is actually something different. And now Kardec comes 10.5 years later and says, how many blessings I have received. And this is one thing that we will, when we dedicate ourselves, even if we are doing something very small in this, in our spiritual path, people that will come to us and say, I don't know, you look different. You have a light in your eyes. You always have something kind to say to others. Or thank you so much because when I was in need, I knew you were the only person that I could talk to help me in this time of distress. Or thank you for introducing me to this kind of literature, to bringing me to places where I can find people that I will find, more affinity, that also share the same values that I have. And saving lives. So many people tell us, every time I was just this week, Divaldo was in Europe, and he was giving a talk, I think it was in France, and he was saying that he had 2 wishes in relation to his profession when he was growing up. And one of them was he wanted to be a priest. And the second one, he wanted to be a doctor. I thought it was interesting because I also wanted to be a nun and I also wanted to be a doctor. And so he said that Joana de Angelis came to him and said, because he was a kind of, he's 92, now is the time where he's reflecting about his life and everything that he has accomplished. And then he said, he was not knowing whether he would feel frustrated or not, because he has not realized and accomplished any of those two dreams, being a priest or a doctor. And then he says that the mentors, one of the angels, came to him and said, but listen, you're not a doctor, a medical doctor, but you are a medium. And in the same way, you promote through mediumship, healing. You're not a priest. But have you realized how many people come to you to confess? And that's fun. That's really fun, because this is actually true of everyone that goes in the line to talk to Devout and say, oh, Devout, you don't know what is happening in my life now. And they start, talking and sharing their lives and their worries with him. So, for us to think that we have this possibility and everything that like that, Kardec had the opportunity of living this experience as well. Hopefully this year we are going to be releasing, the United States Spiritist Federation, it's in the making already, a book that is called The Travels of Kardec in 1862. He traveled to many regions, even in France, and he had the opportunity of going and visiting, like we are doing here, Spiritist centers, and talk to fellow Spiritists. And during those travels, he received a lot of those kind of blessings that he's mentioning here, seeing the difference, the impact that this knowledge made on the life of people. And just for us to have an idea, actually the Spiritist Review 1862 is for sale on our website already. So we already have 58, 59, 60, 61, and 62. From the 12, we already have 5 of them published in English. And there is an article that Kardec writes that is in this Spiritist Review that is called, That is How History is Made, The Millions of Mr. Allan Kardec, where he comments on some of this slander that he was suffering through a priest. And this priest was telling everyone that Allan Kardec was a millionaire, that he had very famous piece of furniture on his home, and that he was making a lot of money with the selling of his books. And this is a very big article. I just brought some of the remarks that Kardec wrote here. And I really would like to advise you to read it. It's very interesting, very fascinating, even for the fact that in those publications that Kardec give to us in the Spiritist Review, he was not afraid to mention, people that were against him, that were against Spiritism. There was, bringing those kind of, remarks about him and his life. But I thought that according to what we have been talking here, this part is very interesting. For everyone who studies this movement, the latest evidence is that Spiritism will mark a phase of humanity. Why does he say that? Because he believes that nothing that is without value will actually impact others, or people are going to waste their time on, commenting or saying something against it. Only those things that actually shake us on our core are things that will deserve this kind of consideration, even when we are talking about criticism, because people will fear that, and that was the case. We are talking about here about France, predominantly Catholic, and with the priests very worried about what was going to be happening, right? Because And then he says, he explains why he thinks it's so important for us to be aware of that. Because it is necessary that later on people may know the vicissitudes it had to endure, the obstacles it encountered, the enemies that tried to annihilate it, and the weapons that were used to fight it. Again, as we started by saying, sometimes we think that because Kardec was a privileged mind and everything else that we already know that he has accomplished, it was everything easy for him, it was everything easy for Spiritism. And now we are here complaining how hard it is to bring this knowledge, to bring this understanding to other people, to other countries, to other languages, with the resources or lack of resources that we have or don't have. And we give up too easily. We give up on us. We give up on our chance. We say, oh, I'm never going to be able to do that. Well, if you say you're never going to be able to do that, we're never going to be able to do that. You are the ones that are actually dictating this. And then he says, it is also important to know how Spiritism triumphed and who were those that through their enthusiasm, dedication, and sacrifice have effectively contributed to its propagation. So we have to understand that we have to respect and mirror ourselves in all of those that have actually worked very hard to bring this and to continue this work. There is a lot of misunderstanding about what it is to be Spiritist, or how it is that we have to be acting in the world. Sometimes people say, oh, but Spiritism says that should we do this or should we do that? And we always repeat, Spiritism do not forbid us of doing anything. There is nothing that is forbidden here. The only thing that we have always is remember that all your actions have a reaction. If you are willing to pay the price for what we are doing, everything has a reaction. Like Apostle Paul used to say, everything is allowed to me, but not everything is convenient to me. And so is the same thing here. So our idea today, I had so much more that I wanted to talk to you, but the time flew by. I think I had to give this talk in 3 parts. About how Kardec brought to us all this knowledge, all this understanding, always with a clear mind. We have to remember that Kardec came from a time of oppression. For those who are not aware, when Kardec was born and when he was 11 years old, some countries in Europe started combining their efforts to put into practice what they called a sacred alliance, which was exactly to make that the Catholic religion was predominant. And with that, many of the subjects that kids would have in school were eliminated because they didn't want any kind of rational thinking. And this is the reason why Kardec was sent to study in Yverdon, Switzerland, because it was a Protestant country and they didn't have this kind of imposition. And he had a good education, because otherwise in France he could not have this good education. So he is the result of understanding religious oppression. At the age of 11, he had to be separated from his family, to go to another country, to study in another country, to communicate even in a different language, because there also they spoke German. So all of that, he didn't want it to come to Spiritism. And this is why he says all the time for us, think with reason. True faith is only that can meet reason face to face in every human epoch. And he put that on the frontispiece of this gospel according to Spiritism, which is the religious aspect of Spiritism. just to say, here, I'm presenting you the religious aspect of Spiritism, but in the first page, I'm telling you, all of that you have to understand with reason, and not just with dogma. So in this sense, we have so much to learn from Kardec. We have so much to also to get to know about his work, about everything that he has endured, about everything that he has conquered. And yes, when I think, and I was preparing that, he says 10 years and a half later, I had everything confirmed that I, lost health, couldn't rest, had to face all the adversities, but I also received it so much. And remember that they said that he was going to die prematurely. A year and a half later, he was dead. Actually, of, an aneurysm that killed him instantaneously. And so we have so much to be grateful to Kardec, and the main objective that we wanted to achieve with this talk is to lead everyone to think about it, that maybe, okay, we are not at the level of Kardec, but we were also called to do something, even if it's just for ourselves, even if it's just to change ourselves, to get more of these spiritual values and to put them in practice and to be people that can inspire others in the world, that can be change makers, spiritual change makers. And so do not give up. Do not think that, you are not capable of succeeding. Today we may not, tomorrow we will. And when we think about ourselves in the past, oh my God, we have moved it up so much already. So let us keep up the good work. Let us, find inspiration in these examples that we have, in other examples that we have in history, and continue in this journey, in this path of redemption, of, finding ourselves, finding our true self, and let, really the light that it is within us shine and be, inspiring others as well. So thank you so much for this opportunity. And I don't know if we have time for questions or...
Thank you, Jussara, again for this amazing talk, this beautiful reminder about Kardec and the hard work and an incentive for all of us, right? That when we compare time, the efforts, and everything in general, technology, for example, right, that Kardec didn't have. And as she was saying, the printing style of the past compared to a push of a button nowadays to say print, and we have something printed. Just again, we're using a mundane way to compare, but it is true that it took a lot of way more effort then for someone to publish and to do the work that he did. And today, sometimes we give up for small things. But we want to hear from you. If you have any questions, any comments, Daniel is already waving back there. I want to ask a question. So we'll ask about 5 or 4 or so questions and or comments if you'd like to share.
Thank you, Jussara. I think that was a nice introduction you gave. I think you have to come back and finish. I saw how many slides you have over there and finish the other thing, because now I'm curious to know what is in the other slides. My question is related to Kardec's family, his parent. In your research, did you find anything how much the education he had in the family impact also help him to, be faithful on this teaching of the Spirit? Because I always wondering about I know that he was capable because of the education in Verdun, intellectual education. But did you find anything in your research that, okay, he has the influence of the father or the mother? I don't know. So could you share this with us?
Okay. Yeah, there are so many things actually. It's starting from his childhood. Kardec was not the only child. He had a brother and a sister before him, and both passed before he was born. And so you can only imagine how hard it was for his parents to lose two children, one of them at the age of 2, the other one at the age of 6. And by the time Kardec's mother got pregnant, she was so old. She was over 30. And they were so scared. And I mean, not only because she had already lost 2 children, not at birth, ages 2 and 6, but because, you know, with this advanced age, it would be very dangerous for a woman to have a child. And when it was about for her time for her to deliver, she was sent to a spa. And a spa at that time was not a place where you go for, you know, just health issues or lose weight. It was a place where, you know, you would have like almost like a medical facility where she would be more cared for and not to take any unnecessary risks. So Kardec was born. That's why he was born in Lyon and not in the city where they used to live, which was Bourg-en-Bresse. Yeah, I spoke French, Bourg-en-Bresse. 2 languages already. At the age of 3, his father disappeared on the Spanish War. So he was raised by his mother. And can you only imagine the mindset of a mother that had already lost 2 children, a husband? Soon after, her father was decapitated by the period of terror as well. And there was all of this. And now he was raised by his mother and grandmother. So he had a female, of course, upbringing, the missionary upbringing. He had an uncle as well. And yeah, so he had a very nourishing, but at the same time, very difficult childhood. You know, I can only imagine this mother when it came to, you know, for the time for Kardec with 11 years old to move from his house. Can you imagine, you know, being a mother? I lost 2 children, now my 3rd child, because of, you know, oppression, religious oppression. I have to send, if I want my son to have a good education, I have to send him to another country. And yes, today you can go from Paris to Yverdon in, I don't know, 2 hours train. It's like, you know, going from here to New York City. But at that time, it was chariots, you know, and bad winter, and it was not so easy. And actually, you can read all of that in this new book that we are releasing now, Kardec and the Spirits. 128 pages, all in color, that tells all the story of Kardec and highlights of the Spirit's book. It's an amazing book, and I really recommend. And we already have in our website, spiritist.us. So, and then, like I said, he fortunately has a great education. He has a father figure that is Johann Pestalozzi. And And I think all that made him what he, also contributed for everything that he had to develop later, including that passage that I told you in terms of not wanting that Spiritism at any time and place could represent any kind of oppression to other people. That's why he says, Spiritism is not the religion of the future. So for all those that think one day the whole world is going to be religion, Spiritism, he says, no. Spiritism is not the religion of the future, it's the future of religion. So you can keep with your religion, you can be there, but religions, little by little, will have to change, will have to evolve, like very much we've been seeing now with, the last popes we have, all revolution, all new interpretations that they are bringing. And so, yes, I think, from the sorrows, the troubles, the difficulties, it really shaped him, and also the people that he had in his life to be able to accomplish everything that he has accomplished. And not to mention his wife, that was absolutely crucial for him to do that as well.
Anyone else? Yes.
That was great, but I was struck with one sentence there, Confession of Kardec, saying that the slander, all the bad things, came actually from inside the Paris society, which I felt was a very homogeneous, like Spiritist, or at least Spiritualist Society of Paris. And how this controversy came from inside against him. What was the issue? Because I could understand the Catholic, the priest, like he writes in the What is Spiritism, he writes this attack. But from inside the society, now I'm feeling a little bit concerned about us also. It seems that we are so homogeneous. Is there something that he had some warning from the spirits of truth? But how about us here, So now I'm concerned.
Unfortunately, societies are made of people. And people is a very difficult animal species. We have our egos. We have this idea that we know it all. I read something, one of the books that we have the Federation as well, that is called God's Breath is Everywhere. It starts like this. There are 5,000 religions and beliefs in the world, but don't worry, yours is the right one. So, we have this tendency of thinking that what we think, what we accept is the right one. And when we are talking about union, when we are talking about a society, when we are talking about work of this nature, not everyone will be inclined or understand that there will be differences. We have equal rights, but we are different. We are different even in the level of involvement that each one of us have here. Some spirits are older than we are. And we have to be humble to accept that and to learn from them. But mostly, many times what we find is people trying to dispute with others. So what Kardec it was exactly that, when he was trying to say, according to the revelations of the spirits, to the indication of spirits, we have to follow in this, in this way, in this path. There were people that were disputing his or the spirits, or even a spirit of truth advices. Like, for instance, one thing that we have with Spiritism that is you do not change that. Spiritism will never charge for their services. Spiritist mediums are never going to charge for their services. So now we are living in a time in the 19th centuries where mediums were becoming millionaires. They were people that were invited even to the palaces to entertain princes and princesses and kings and queens. And maybe they didn't get that much money, but they had, they would be there, live in Versailles for a year. 2 years for, in Buckingham Palace, perhaps, I don't know, So those things not necessarily were accepted by all mediums or by everyone at that time. Although, in order for you to belong to the Spiritist Society of Paris, it was almost like you had to go to a test. It was not like this, the door is open, just you everyone is welcome. No, it was not like that. You had to have an interview. You had to be asked about your intentions, what you were expected. You would be coming, attending a little bit, and then later in the board of the Spiritist Society of Paris, that person would be or not accepted there. So you can only imagine that those that were not accepted would live there saying the worst. And so this is, unfortunately, we still live that today. We still have people that do not share perhaps the same values or only think that their values or their ideas are the only one. That is why we always talk a lot about, the more we talk to each other, the more we work as a group in unity, the less we will be prone to fall and to fail. But we cannot avoid people saying what they want to say. And we just have to keep on going and to do what we know within ourselves that is the right thing to do. But yes, Kardec suffered that. And once I remember in a talk, the great Brazilian speaker, Spiritist speaker, Raul Teixeira said, the greatest enemy of Spiritists are Spiritists. It's sad but true.
Thank you. Yes, we do have more time. Alba?
Thank you, Jussara. Can we stay until 9 p.m. here? Can we stay until 9 p.m. here?
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Really, really, this is fascinating, especially because although we are, at least myself, I call myself Spiritist, but I don't know a lot about Allan Kardec, which is kind of a shame now. I'm going to do my homework. I understand of the spiritual stature, like he was a great spirit and he already came to this planet, right? However, one of the things that I'm trying to figure it out is before him knowing about the communication with the spirits, knowing about the spirits of truth and all the support that he will have, he must create a relationship with God or with Jesus or he must exercise some sort of spirituality that made him strong enough to endure what he endured, after 50 years old. So how was his religious for me? I don't want to say religious, it's more spiritual.
I think we can never look at those things in the short term. Like many people say, how come you have that much faith? We do not conquer faith in just one lifetime. We do not just conquer spirituality or this desire for a spiritual quest in just one incarnation. And I think we have to think about Kardec in the same way. When we think why he used the name Allan Kardec, which was actually a previous incarnation that he had in in 43, around 43 before Christ, at the time of the Emperor Julius Caesar, when he was a Druid priest. I mean, at that time already, he was involved with religious things, maybe not as enlightened as today. And then when we continue thinking, especially one of his incarnation, that it was the incarnation of the cleric Jan Hus. And when we have the opportunity of reading more about Jan Hus, you will see that what a incredible, enlightened person this Jan Hus was, and how much as Jan Hus already, he was talking about reason all the time. So we are talking here about the 1450s, so the 50th century. He already had that. He already had this. And I think that, in his life, they don't talk much about, his religious inclination, but they talk about, he's being raised in a predominantly Catholic country, which was France, and being, of course, exposed, as every citizen was exposed and to this kind of, the practice, going to mass and all of that. And also then being exposed to Protestantism in Switzerland, which was actually something also very important for him. So it was part of, Jesus' religiosity. It was part of all the citizens at that time, especially for those that had a certain privilege in terms financially speaking. And Kardec had that. Okay, Kardec was not from, the people from the miserable condition from Victor Hugo. No, he had good resources when he started his life. Of course, after that, he endured a lot of financial problems, mainly because of his uncle and this and that. But yes, he had, without a doubt, he had that. And one thing that we understand is when we talk about the group of spirits that had participated in the making of Spiritism, one of which is Benjamin Franklin, that we had message from him in the Gospel According to Spiritism. We understand that, of course, Kardec was such an enlightened spirit as those that were. Sometimes I keep imagining, okay, they had that board gathering, say, okay, who's the volunteer to go there and to face perhaps the fire again, because Jan Hus died at the stake. And he said, okay, I already experienced that. If that is the case, I can go again, And he was the one that was chosen to be the incarnate peace among this group. Because you know what? Evolved spirits do not work alone. Not even God. God creates everything, but he has the messengers that will be working together. And this is another example for us. I hope I answered your question. But we don't have much more information about that,
Well, anyone else? Any other question, comments that you would like to ask? Not really. Okay, good. Much food for thought. Thank you again,
Thank you so
Jussara.
much. Until next time. Part 2 of this talk, right?
We already, Daniel's already preparing the dates for the next time, for sure, as usual. I would like just to, as Jussara was saying, this is, I don't want to make you jealous, but I had the opportunity to flip over some of the pages in the back as we were listening today. And it is an amazing thing. I mean, it's one of those books that I'll start reading, and I had to pay attention. And I was like, I pay attention. Well, let me pay attention, and then I can read later. Because we will order several of the copies for us to have here at the Spiritist Society of Baltimore. If you look at it, first insight that you have is that something for kids or young people is for all of us, because a lot what she just mentioned in terms of his life, the encounters, it's in here. And we can learn, and we can go do what? Our homework to go deeper. If we want to learn a little bit more about his early life, if we want to go deeper into other aspects of his life as well as Spiritism. So stay put. We'll be ordering soon, and we'll have it here at the Spirit Society of Baltimore. At this moment, what I would like to do is to invite everyone to connect with the message in a deeper sense.